Okay, this is Ellen, and this is our Q&A 3. So I want to hear how it went this week. You guys got together?
Yeah, we
Yes.
did.
Renee
And?
got in touch with me
Yeah.
and we just exchanged stories about how we're doing and what we're working on, and
Okay.
it's helpful.
Good. So how are you doing? How is the writing coming?
I've been involved in a resistance course this week.
Ah, that makes sense.
That's what I've been doing all week, every day. So
Right.
I feel pretty good. I'll be done on Friday. So
Oh, so it's helping. It's helping.
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Who taught it?
His name is Christopher Duncan.
Okay. Have to check that out. In case, I mean, there's always people who need this, you know.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
not just about resistance in writing, it's about resistance in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Got it. So what was it, a free challenge kind of deal or?
It's a 5-day
Yeah.
workshop.
Oh. Okay.
Mm. Have you learned anything really helpful from it that's helping
It's
with this?
it's process work. So, and you know about process work, it shows up after the work is really done.
Yeah. And I'm afraid I've been a bit sick. I've had gastric flu and I've been sort of in bed for a couple of days, but I've kept on writing a bit each morning, and I had a real breakthrough in that I realized I have not been willing to accept I'm an expert at what I do, because what I'm doing is a synthesis of all sorts of things, and each of the groups that I'm drawing from would probably regard some of what I'm talking about as rubbish. But I have to say, well, I have put this together.
Right. Well, that's the point. The point is that you have something new.
It's a solid understanding that adds something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is what being an expert is. It's taking things that you've seen, seeing what doesn't work, seeing what does work for you, and synthesizing it in a new way. And yeah, but then you've got to be able to own that.
So I'm adding the unconscious elements of Jungian psychology and the unconscious and archetypes to the understanding of anxiety and overwhelm and how to get past it.
Good. Yeah. I was doing a 5-day challenge this week with Grace Lever. And, you know, one of the things that she talks about is when you're putting together a Facebook group, that's exactly what you want to do, is go look at other people's groups that are in your niche and how is yours different? How is yours unique? So if yours is exactly like someone else, why would somebody come to yours?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's like me. One of the things I'm always harping on is this thing of, you know, marketing comes before writing, because that's one of the things I see in my business, you know, in my niche over and over, is these guys say they say some variation of the same thing. It's either know what your why is and then start writing, you know, or start with a brain dump. And to me, that is like so ridiculous. I mean, you know, unless you don't care if you're going to write something that people actually want to read, and you don't mind guessing at, you know, what their problems are and who your ideal market is, and hoping that it works out, you know. So, I mean, so it's easy for me. I mean, like I went on a podcast. I remember I was on a podcast pitch, and I had never done a podcast pitch, and it was with Steve Olsher. And he was explaining while we were on this pitch how to pitch them, you know, and I just wrote up a little pitch right then while I was on there when I got on somebody's podcast. And it was the same thing. It was like I started with the idea that, you know, that people don't talk about marketing. So yeah, if you want to figure out how yours is different and why people should come to you. And I think also there has to be some kind of passion for or rage at your market, right? The other people in your niche. It's like, no, this is not the way to do it, you know, or I can do this better, or both. And that was the thing when I first created this, I called it a workshop, you know, in 2004, the first variation of of this boot camp. And, basically it grew out of, I know I can do this better. Like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when I started, I found one book, which is still the book today, and one e-course, but I needed more than that. I needed hands-on, I needed a process, I needed a system. And I remember getting to the end of the book and it goes, well, now you need to start marketing it. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I mean, that's it? You're leaving me there? It's like, oh my God, So
I
yeah.
guess
Huh?
one thing I was wondering about, it occurred to me that if this book is really good, and I think it might be an important book,
Yeah.
what happens next? You do your Kindle launch,
Uh-huh.
and then you put the price up to a higher level at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do if you're approached by a mainstream publisher who wants to take it on?
Well, then you have to think about whether you want to do that or not. So, I mean, there are pros and cons of self-publishing and traditional publishing and hybrid publishing. And the thing about it is that no matter who the publisher is, they want to know that you have a following. They want to know that you can sell books. They want to know that you're going to market it. And I'm telling you, I mean,
none of this is wasted. This is all a wonderful way to get your book out there.
Oh yeah, no, it's not wasted.
It's not an either or.
Yeah, but the other thing you have to realize too is that they can walk it into places that will be harder for you to get into. I mean, if you wanted super, distribution. On the other hand, you give up a lot for that.
Right. You give
up a lot. And I mean, I had one woman in one of my boot camps, and she was saying how she had a friend who had a cookbook that sold for $40 and she got $1 from each book.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yeah. And the reason that I started
it's not worth it. It's not worth it to do that.
Well, and then the other thing of it was that I remember, when I first started, I mean, I had been in the music business and we got 10 cents a record. So everybody else was getting rich off of us. And so that was the reason I was so excited in the beginning. In the beginning, I was known as the ebook coach because I was so about online and ebooks because it was new and it was relatively new and it was different. But it was also that I was just not going to go that route again.
Yeah.
I was not going to go that route where somebody else makes all the money off of my creativity. But if you're not, it used to be, if you're not willing to do the marketing, go with a publisher. It's not really like that anymore because you still have to do the marketing, So, yes. I mean, the reason people that go, like I said, go with a major publisher is a couple of reasons. One is they want the cachet of it. It's really more about that than anything else. And they don't care about how much money they make from it. Two, like I said, it's the distribution that they get, which doesn't mean you can't get distribution. You can, but they get better placement, generally, and that kind of thing. And then the third thing is just knowing that, you're not going to make a lot of money from that unless it's like, a New York Times bestseller. And again, I mean, if you look at who's a New York Times bestsellers, well, even if you look at New York Times bestsellers, who are there? They're people who have huge platforms for the most part. It's rare.
A long time.
Yeah, it's rare that it's, every once in a while there's somebody who, it's their first novel and it takes off or whatever, like 50 Shades of Grey. But she was marketing before it got picked up. So the myth in the industry is that you're going to get picked up and they're going to just take over and life is going to be wonderful after that, So, but, and then there are people like Amanda Hawking, who is the one that they use all the time as the example. And she first of all was doing fiction. And second of all, she made like $6 million and actually took a pay cut in order to get them to do it because she was tired of doing the marketing. But she was so well known and read at that point that they were willing to do that. And what I mean about that is, like, even in publishing companies, and it was like this in the music business too, Like I wrote a song with a guy who was signed to a major record label, but he wasn't their top tier writer, right? So even though he got a deal and they paid him some money, they were not hawking his songs like they were hawking some of their other writers' songs. And it was my publisher, who was an independent publisher, who actually got us the cut that got me the Grammy nomination. So, that's the other thing is like people think, oh, well, you got in with the major publisher, it's going to be smooth sailing now. And that's not necessarily true.
So what about the option that the book takes off, it's doing well. It's sort of clearly respected and taken to be an important book. You may be approached by a mainstream publisher or not, but you decide not to. What do you do then?
You market your book. So there's
So what changes?
What changes? Nothing, is you just have to keep marketing your book. I mean, Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled, he marketed his book every single day for 12 years. It was on the bestseller list until he died.
How did he market it?
I don't know what he did every day, but I know what Jack Canfield did. I mean, they got on radio shows. They got on several radio shows a day. Now it's people, get on as many podcasts as you can get on. It's about speaking, speaking and writing, but speaking is way better, I think, in general than writing. I think writing, I mean, I love writing, but writing to me seems to be a more difficult road than speaking.
I think you can't get as many ideas out when you're writing in a short amount of time like you can when you're speaking.
Well, and here's the other thing though too. It's like, and this is true not just of books. I mean, this is true of books, products, services, anything you're doing. When I first started my business, I grew my business with joint ventures. I mean, I didn't spend I've never spent much money on ads. I mean, I spent a few bucks. That's about it. And when I did, I didn't get anything out of it really. And I know at some point I'll do it again, but it's good for some things. And yeah, I mean, what you can do is there's something called a free plus shipping offer. And that's a whole nother way of doing it more passively. So, when you're speaking your book and you're going on podcasts, you want to have a copy of your book, you hold up your book, or if you have like a shelf in back of you, then you have it sitting on your shelf, right? One night we were watching Van Jones on CNN, and I tried to take a picture of it because he had a book right in back of him, but it wasn't his book. It was somebody else's book.
Oh.
Right. And he's an author. So I was like, oh, that was that was a big mistake on his part, that he wasn't doing it right, But free plus shipping is and then you're talking about a whole automated system with ads. And then you've got to be, you've got to have the ad spend or in the know-how and all that. So it's a whole nother thing. But I also noticed like, how people have an opt-in on their website, on the first page of their website. Well, I noticed like one of my competitors has a free plus shipping offer right on his front page, So I thought that was kind of an interesting approach. So it's saying right off the bat, I don't care about you if you want something for free, but if you're willing to take a free plus shipping offer,
$5.95.
Yeah, right.
Whatever.
$7.95 usually. But I had been on one of his webinars as he walked people through his system, and his system was basically using the free plus shipping offer and using it the way that Russell Brunson teaches it. But the problem with it was that he wasn't really doing it well. And so as he's explaining this webinar, he said he spent like $78,000 in ads, but he had to put 10,000 of his own to break even. So at that point, I had a funnel coach, and I said, I don't get it. I thought the whole idea of free plus shipping was for it to be self self-sustaining. In other words, you're supposed to be able to put your first offer behind the book back into the ads and it doesn't come out of your pocket. And he said, yeah, he's not doing it right. I'm like, oh, okay. So, so right away, I mean, all those people who can't afford to put $10,000 out of their pocket, he already lost them. But he was like, well, but I made 2 million on the back end. Well, that's great if you have the 10,000 to put in, but it wasn't, but the free plus shipping isn't, that strategy is not set up for you to have to put $10,000 in. It's set up for it to be self-sustaining after the first few bucks that you put in. Because then after your first offer behind that, you're supposed to put that back into the ad so it doesn't like come out of your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's really the two ways. One is active, one is passive.
Right.
But if I were going to just do ads, let me think about that. If I were going to just do ads and send people right to my book, I probably wouldn't do that. I would probably send them to a free plus shipping offer. But then there are other people who do it a different way. Chuck Bartok, I interviewed him at one time, and what he does is he gives chapters away as he's writing the book. And by the time he's written the book, he'll give away the whole book. He'll give away each chapter as he finishes it. Well, obviously, first of all, you have to write it in a way that it's done chapter by chapter, which not everybody can do. I mean, I work with lots of clients one-on-one, and not everybody can write the book chronologically. Like sometimes they'll write the book chronologically and then they see, certain things that now don't work, and they go back and they want to change things, and, in different places. And if you're giving it away chapter by chapter, that's not going to work unless you tell people up front you're getting, this version of it, and it may change. I don't know. I don't know how he does that, but anyway, and then he sells it, and he says, and the same people buy it because they don't want to. They want the physical book.
Stephen Pressfield does that same thing.
Yeah.
He has a new book coming out. It's not out yet, but he's given away chapter after chapter, and then he has a pre-order. What do you call it? Landing page, where you can go ahead and pre-order the book after you've.
Yeah, I was on a Clubhouse call this morning, and they were talking about. I was listening in because they were all people who were published by major publishers, and since I didn't go that way, I don't know a ton about, that whole process. But I wonder what I did with that, because there was some stuff in there that they were talking about pre-orders, and I remember thinking that was interesting. Let me see if I can find what that was.
The free plus shipping offer. You mentioned that before, but what are you actually giving them free? Is it
the book?
Print copy of the same book?
Yeah, it's the book. In other words, it's the print copy of the book, but you're mailing it to them, and so they are paying for the shipping. There's a couple of things with that. One is you only want to do it in the U.S., because I found that out the hard way. Like one time I was trying to send a book to Australia, and it was like $25 to send the book. So I was like,
It is, if you send it surface mail, they only send priority express mail. But there are cheaper ways of mailing things. But
most people I see when they do it, they don't do it that way. They'll just say print in the U.S. and EPUB if you're anywhere else. It's kind of usually the way that I've seen it done. But
and how do you do that? How do you get that? You're paying them for each copy of the book. Then
you can have a drop shipper.
Right. Yeah. I would never do it myself. I mean, you want to have it sent from from a fulfillment place.
But there's a charge on the actual printing, isn't there?
Yeah.
So you're absorbing that.
Yeah, well, you're not doing this to like make money. I mean, sometimes people make a few, buck on it or something. But what you're really doing is you're getting the lead for somebody raising their hand and saying, I'm a buyer and I'm interested in your topic. And then there's an offer behind that. And that offer is generally,
Go on. Sorry.
And that offer is generally $27, $37, something like that. I've seen them done a couple of different ways. I've seen them done like 27 or 37, and then they have what's called a bump. So like for $7 more. And I always say it's kind of like, I don't know if you have this in your country, but we have something called Bed Bath and Beyond. And when you go to the front, they've got all these little things that are like $5 or less, because they know,
Oh, yes.
right, that you're already there. You've already got your credit card out. Maybe I'm spending a couple $100 on a toaster or a blender, whatever. And, oh, this cute little thing is, is a little, going to make opening my can easier, and it's only $5. And so you'll grab it. And so what happens is, they've got hundreds of stores all over and people doing that all day long. And it's literally extra millions of dollars for them to do that. So
we call it lost leaders.
Right. So that's where, right. So that's where that comes from. And anyway, so that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, and I interviewed Jamie Atkinson a couple times on the podcast at the beginning of the year, and he did this, and I actually knew about one of his courses, and I thought that that's what he was selling, and I ended up going through this thing, and I ended up buying everything. And when it was all over, I was kind of pissed off because I didn't get what I thought I was getting.
Oh,
but I was glad I did it, because what Russell Brunson calls it is funnel hacking. And what he suggests people do is that they go and find funnels. Some you can do it where people have offers in your niche, but also it can be outside your niche. So he was outside my niche, but his offer was, it was a free plus shipping. Then it went to a $27. Then it went to a $37. Then it went to a $47. And then it went to a $97. And I'm like, wow, okay, well, he's making about $60 more on each funnel than the way Russell told me to do it. So, but that's what he was saying, is there are different ways to do it. And it certainly worked, because I bought everything. So.
Right. Well, and what was he selling? What were the items?
I don't even know.
I mean, were they books? Were they courses?
No. It was on podcasting. It was all related to podcasting. Yeah.
Frank Kern does a lot of that drop shipping with the book, and he has a big purchase price at the end. He doesn't start out.
Oh, he just goes, well, yeah, but he's Frank Kern. That's why.
Right. But I'm just saying, maybe $37 is not worth your time. That's all I'm saying,
No, I think it's totally worth your time if you realize that each time you make a sale, that's now going into your advertising budget. You don't spend that. That's what I was saying. So
well, what I'm saying is maybe you want to start at a higher.
And I'm saying if people don't know who you are, or you're not well known, I don't think it'll work. You can try it.
Yeah.
But now you're spending the advertising dollars to start out of your own pocket. And then if it doesn't work, you're out that money. So I would rather start smaller in a way that I know has a much better chance of working, and work my way up. But like I said, Russell Brunson can do that. Frank Kern can do that. Jim Edwards can do that. But that doesn't mean that everybody can do that.
Right. Grace does that too, pretty much.
Grace does. Yeah. It's funny. I never heard of her until.
I can't believe you haven't heard of her.
I had never heard of her until.
She's been Grace Lever. She's been out about 2 or 3 years. 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I had never heard of her until the day before her challenge, and then all of a sudden, after I'd heard of her, the very next day, I saw an ad right in my feed, and and then I took the challenge. But oh boy, I don't know if something's just happening to my brain or what, but it's like by the 5th day, and and the way they talk, my brain was like ready to explode. I just want them to stop talking. I mean,
I think she's such an A personality that I think kind of got to be in that high. You still want to have
she's
to do
that way, and
thing.
Russell's that way, and Suzanne's that way. I mean, they just have this high energy talking thing, and after a while, I love all of them, but I find it exhausting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
you need to calm down a bit.
yeah, it just gets to be too much. But anyway, okay. So what they
you feel like you can't really keep up because that's not who you are.
No, I feel like I can keep up, but I just feel like my brain is like. I just get tired of the chatter after a while. It's just too much.
Yeah.
I've noticed lately, I just need to take more time off. I just can't. I just don't
Okay.
want to hear all that chatter constantly, Anyway, one of the things that they were saying, I'd never actually heard this before, but there a few things that they said this morning on this call in Clubhouse. One was that they suggested getting a PR person if you're going to self-publish. Again, I know people who've had really bad experiences with that. If I were going to do that, I would go with someone who gets paid for results.
That's a great idea. That's really a good idea.
Yeah. The other thing they were talking about was this kind of cracked me up too. In the pre-launch, and one guy goes, "Oh, you should coin that." Well, Jeff Walker coined it about 2 decades ago. But anyway, yeah. So in the pre-launch, in other words, when you're just getting started, marketing your book, they were saying to do a pre-launch with a pre-launch with taking pre-orders, and then opening it and then closing it and putting it on a wait list, and then just again to be everywhere in social media, talk about your journey. Another thing Jeff talks about is get people to vote for your titles, to vote for your book covers, because when people are involved in the process, they feel more connected to it. And, once they participate, you get more buyers from that, according to him.
Have you ever seen him do that? Because I never have. In the stuff I've gotten from him, I've never seen him.
You've never seen him
implement that? Yeah.
Well, he only did the one book. So, I mean, yeah, he did it once, but he did it in 99 designs. And basically what he said was that they narrowed it down to like the top 5, and then they had people vote on those. And then the final one that the book cover ended up with wasn't exactly like what they picked. They kind of still tweaked it, but it was, basically that one. Yeah. So that was the deal with that. And basically, I mean, it's like anything. It's like, money loves visibility. It's the more you talk about it, the more, enthusiasm you show for it, the more sales you're going to make. The thing is, most people don't do it, number one. And number two, the other thing is that having enough time to do it, like one guy was saying, he had written a book a year and he wished he'd written only one every 3 years so that he could have spent more time promoting that one. Whereas, my friend Jeanette Cates, I mean, she went through a thing where she was doing one once a month.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was actually cranking them out faster than that. And Amazon didn't like it. And so, she, I don't know how she knew that Amazon didn't like it, but somehow she got that it wasn't working too well. And so then she pulled back a little bit and started doing, one a month. And the reason she did that was because she thought she was going to retire. And so she was trying to get all her information into books and, and trying to really automate her business more. Also, as far as books go, we talked about self-publishing your book. The average 6-figure self-published author has 28 books. So that's a lot of books.
That's a lot of books.
But there's a lot of different kinds of books that you can write. Like not every book has to be like what we're writing, here. I mean, like I'm giving you a blueprint that you can use a lot of different ways. But like when I wrote 21 simple strategies to jumpstart your book marketing online, I mean, I did what I teach you. I mean, I just like, wrote out what every single one was going to be. And then I just filled it in and I did it in 3 days. Other books don't get written that fast. So, I mean, there are books that are Q&As, you can compile Q&As. You can compile, for instance, I do a self-publishing post every Thursday. And I do it in my group and I also do it in somebody else's group because she's got a way bigger group than mine because she started way earlier. But, I could take all of those and turn that into a book, on self-publishing tips. So podcasts that I've done, I could do, the best, the best content from podcasts for 2000 or,
sure.
Whatever. So, I mean, there's a million different ways that you could get a lot more books a lot faster than just, but if you're not out there marketing them, it's not going to matter. Like you could do 28 books, but if you're not marketing,
Right.
it's just going to be 28 books sitting there. You know? Yeah. So that's the deal with that.
So is there anything different with a kid's book than with an adult book?
Not real. I mean, not really in terms of like you still have to market, you know,
Right.
the book.
Right.
As far, the only difference is like you're not marketing to the reader, you're marketing to the parent who buys the book.
Okay, got
Right.
it.
Right. So you always have to know who you're marketing to and who your readers are, and they're not always the same. I remember when I did my first book on moving, and I thought I was going to sell it to realtors to give to their clients. The problem, see, but the thing that I didn't understand was that how, like, you know, they don't want to know, like, you don't want to tell them that it's hard to move, right? Because you want them to move, right?
Right.
So you want to make it easy for them to move. And so I didn't quite, you know, the first time I didn't quite get it right. I didn't quite.
Yeah, you
get
were
it
telling them how hard it was instead of how easy
right.
it
Right,
could be.
right. The original one was 22 steps, and I remember Dan Pointer said to me, 22 steps. Nobody wants 22 steps. That's, you know, way too many. And actually, it's way more than that if you really break it down into steps. But and also the original title was just how to organize your move to save time and your sanity, which ended up being the subtitle. But when I did that at first, and again, it was my first book, I didn't know any better. And Dan said, that is a boring title. And he was right. You know, he was right. That was
So
the
what
best.
was your main title?
Originally, yeah, but then it ended up being The Moving Cure, and I never
Yeah.
liked that, and I never did anything with it, which is really too bad because it's really a great book. We saved like 50% on our moves using it, but then I thought, okay, well, if I don't sell it to realtors, if I just sell it to the public, then I had this other title called "Help This Move Is Driving Me Crazy."
That's cute too.
Right. And I could use that if I just forget about trying to give it to, you know, give it to realtors and just do it. But I just never quite, I don't know.
Do you think the realtor really cares about the client that's moving? Because I never get that feeling that they really do. Once they've got the sale, they don't seem too interested in how the
No, but
client
the thing was,
moves
it was
on.
prospects. So, I mean, it's like, you know, if people are thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to buy the house. I don't know if I want to move. I don't know, you know, that kind of
I
thing.
know, it's a big ordeal.
It's a big ordeal. Yeah. I mean, we've been living where we are for 8 years only because we were supposed to be here 6 months. And every time we'd think about moving, it was like, oh, can't move.
I understand.
We moved so much in the 90s. We were buying, fixing, and selling houses. We were constantly moving. It's awful. That's why I wrote the book. That's exactly why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yes, my kids can say where we were at a particular year by, you know, if you say this year, they can figure out where we lived and where we had Christmas that year.
Right.
So you moved a lot too?
30 times or something.
Oh, God.
Wow.
That's more than us. Yeah.
So I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
When you were marketing to realtors, did you?
I didn't do it. That was the idea, but I never did it. But what's the question?
If you were going to do it that way, is the idea that you're wanting them to buy copies of it that they have available, print copies they have available?
Yes.
Or do you have it that this is something that they can offer as a service?
No.
That they can refer them to this book, recommend this book.
Because I didn't want to do a moving service. I didn't want to have anything to do with that. Yeah, no.
Right.
No, I just wanted them
So
to buy the books.
They buy it in bulk, and they buy it in bulk and have it for
Yeah. But I don't know if realtors would like a book that said "Help This Move Is Driving Me Crazy." I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get
But it's really hard because the other one I came up with that I really liked, but it was taken, was "Pack It Up." I liked that. That was really cute, but somebody had it. So
Right.
I never quite came up with something that I loved that worked, but I'm glad you thought that was cute. Help Us Move is driving me crazy.
I like it.
Yeah.
I would buy
And
that off the shelf.
yeah, and it was also really weird because I spent a lot of money. I mean, like most people, the first book, I spent way too much money, formatting everything. It was gorgeous. And then when I went back to her because I needed to make some changes, she's like, I didn't do this book. I'm like, right, I just pulled your name out of a hat and and it was just weird. And that's not the first time that happened to me because when my song was Grammy nominated, we went to Spago's up on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles to celebrate. And it was right across the street from, well, this is not really relevant to this conversation. But anyway, Tower Records was right there. And so after dinner, we went in there and got the billboard. But anyway, they had a chocolate souffle that was just to die for. And so the next time we went back, I was like, I wanted to get, it's like, when are we going to go back? I got to have that again. We go back and they go, we never had that.
Like, don't you hate that? Like, yes, you did. I had it here.
Right, exactly. They're trying to tell make you think you're crazy, Like,
Yeah.
oh God. Yeah. So that was that. But anyway, so yeah, that's what
So
happened.
basically, we sort of start out, we do our launch, we finish our book, we do the pre-stuff, we get the book out there on a launch. We do everything we can to be getting it known, to getting ourselves known, to building a platform as we go and marketing as we go. At what stage do we write the next book?
Well, again, that's entirely up to you. I mean, this guy was saying he wished he had written less books because, he wanted more time to just market the other one. And then other people like Jeanette are like, I can't get it out fast enough because I want them all automated and they all work together and I'm making money on the back end with all my calls to action. So, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. Right.
Yeah.
So all her books were in the same line of thinking.
Well, no, yes and no. I mean, she's written a ton of books, but she was a tech person,
Right.
But they are different. Let's see.
Is Dan Pointer still alive?
No. Nope. Okay, so she's got one, Teach Online, design your first online course. She's got one that she did with breast cancer after she got that. Your first Kindle book, how to write, format, and publish your book in a week. Teach Online, course creation. So she's got a couple on course creation. Create one-page websites. Sell more books as a teleseminar guest. 8-hour websites. So there's a bunch of different ones. Sell your book with an e-course. 31 quick tactics to sell more books for the holiday book sales. So there's a whole bunch of them. Productivity pointers. I mean, it just goes on and on. She's written a ton of them. Yeah. So, like, what are you thinking for the next book?
Well, I guess I've got the 4 paths to calm, and each of them in a way can be a book.
Mm-hmm.
There's also overwhelmed in your relationship,
Mm-hmm.
Overwhelmed with a scary illness. I've got one on procrastinating. That's a process that I've worked on with my clients.
Okay, well, the thing that I would, the thing I would say in your situation is, I mean, I know like you need to make, you need to make income. So my question would be, what's the next one that makes the most sense, that moves your business along the fastest?
Probably overwhelmed in your relationship.
Okay, then that would be the one I would do next.
Right.
But sometimes I have something on my mind. It's like all of a sudden it just is bursting to get birthed, right? Like I have to write it. Like, and sometimes that happens, and then maybe it's out of order of what I thought I was going to write next. But if it's coming, I don't, I certainly don't stop it.
Right,
Don't
right.
fight it.
Right.
Yes, I love Elizabeth Gilbert's story in Big Magic, or on the interview she had on, I think it was a TED Talk, about how she had a book that she was about to write, and then her partner's visa, she fell into horrible trouble with that and had to just put the story aside. And over the next 3 months, she met another woman, and Tyler, I think, and Patchett. And they met, they'd communicated, they met, and they really adored each other, having never actually met before. They kissed, and then within 2-3 months, Anne was writing this book, and they'd never talked about it. And yet it was set in the Amazon. It was about people in a particular American company having to go to the Amazon and things happening. And she'd never mentioned it, and suddenly Anne told her about this novel she had half written, writing like crazy since about when they met. And it was the same novel, and she was just delighted because she dropped it.
So it was the novel that Elizabeth was gonna write.
Elizabeth was going to write, and then she actually wasn't able to because life intervened.
Yeah.
And then it got picked up in a passion by this other writer.
That's funny. That's funny how that happens. That can happen. Ideas, like you said, ideas come down
when they come down.
Yeah.
And who they come down through.
If you don't do it, someone else will.
Right.
Yeah. That's true. We were just watching Victoria and Abdul. You guys ever seen that movie about Queen Victoria? Anyway, she has this servant who is an Indian, and he ends up teaching her Urdu. And anyway, and he says that the local teachers over there called munchies. And he says, I want you to be my munchie. And her family can't stand it because, the whole caste system and everything.
Right.
But anyway, she teaches him how to write in Urdu. And she keeps these voluminous journals of everything that she's learning with him and what they're doing and everything. This was in the last 14 years of her life. Her husband had died. She'd had a lot of loss, and she was lonely, and he became like her confidant and friend and everything. And anyway, and when she died, her son just couldn't stand the whole thing, and he burned all of her work.
Bad karma.
All of her work. But he ended up going back to India, and he ended up writing the story, which was then found like 100 years later and made into this movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
I never understand how somebody can be that cruel.
I know.
I just don't get it.
I guess jealousy.
Yeah. Jealousy.
Yeah, and just
split up, and he was a potter, and he left her to unpack his last kiln full of pots, and she broke every single one of them.
Oh God.
Ooh.
She was just so angry and so fed up with him, and she wanted to punish him.
Yeah, I've heard that story before. I've heard somewhere else. One of those stories where they were so angry they just. Oh, I know what it was. It was the Betty Broderick story. Like she just drove them crazy. Do you remember that story?
I don't remember. I remember her name, but I don't remember the story.
Well, they were actually in La Jolla, so it's down here in San Diego. But yeah, I mean, she was an upper, middle class housewife. Her husband was a doctor, and she had put him through school. Made all the sacrifices, raised his kids. The whole 9 yards. And then he left her for a younger woman, and she just couldn't handle it, and she ended up killing both of them.
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's extreme.
Yeah.
It is a bit.
Yeah, but I remember when, one of the friends saying to the doctor's new wife, saying, can't you just give her the dishes and try to make nice? And she goes, I hate her. And I know I'm going to break all the dishes.
Well, that's bad too.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, but yeah, I would love to have known what was, I would love to have seen those journals to be able to be,
Yeah,
yeah,
translated.
Yeah. But anyway, so we got his version. We got his version because we'll never
Yeah.
know what her version was. Yeah.
There might have been a lot of sadness in there if she was a
Oh, I'm
lonely
sure there
person.
was. Yeah. 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 I mean, it had been a lot. I mean, she reigned for 62 years.
Yeah.
And she'd been alone a long time. But anyway. So yeah, so that's the deal with the free plus shipping stuff. And one of the things that I've learned, it's like I teach people how to write the book. I love this. I love the boot camp and all that, but marketing is a whole nother deal.
Yeah.
I mean, because there is so much you can do, and you really have to figure out what you're willing to do, what you can be consistent with, and also allowing yourself, sometimes it's baby steps. Like when I, like everybody was, Facebook Lives. And so I remember doing a 30-day Facebook Live challenge. So I did that and I did it for 30 days. But when it was over, I did not keep it up. And I was going through a lot of stuff about judgments about how I looked on video, and I don't know how I felt on video, or just, the not having the control, being live and not, I don't know, whatever. I just had all kinds of trips about it. So anyway, when I was talking to my coach and I had reached this low point and he was saying I should start a podcast, and I was like, that feels really right to me, because I love to talk and it was audio. I didn't have to deal with video. But it was interesting because after doing it for really not that long, I realized that I liked seeing the people. Like, I wasn't thinking like putting it online, but just that I wanted to see them while I was talking to them. And so I started doing that. I started doing them in video and audio, really for me. So I have a lot of them that I really haven't even never put up, which I should. But anyway, but that wasn't why I started doing it, which was in the beginning why I didn't even think about necessarily putting them up. But the point was that was a step, right? That was a step. And then when I got it,
you go.
huh?
You learn as you go and work out your next step after your.
Well, I didn't even know I was doing this, but basically I was taking baby steps, and then I got more comfortable with that. And then I realized that people weren't looking at me the way I was looking at me, And then I remember thinking, well, Suzanne was saying, when you do Facebook Lives, and they have to be 15 minutes because you have to give people time to show up and all this kind of stuff. And then I was like, still frozen, because oh my God, what am I going to say for 15 minutes? And it's stressful. And I was just still having trips about it. And then my coach said to me, well, I don't care if you do 2 minutes right now, just as long as you do them at the same time every week consistently. And so it was funny because the first few times I did it, I think I went like 25, 30 minutes, because I wasn't really worried about how long it was going to be, right? And some are shorter and some are longer. But the point was that then I reached a point where I could commit to doing that once a week. So, and that's where I am with it now, is I've been doing it once a week. As it turned out, it was right before this call. And so this week I just said, I just had too much going on, and I plus it was the last thing of Grace's call as well. And so I just said, I'm not doing it today. I have another commitment, which was true. Yikes, something's loud in the background there.
Yeah.
And
my
so
partner's got the TV on.
And so anyway, but so I moved it to Saturday this week, because I tried to do it on time last week, and I thought it was a mess. But anyway, but I did it. So, but the point is that what I realized is that I had been taking baby steps as I was growing, right?
Right.
As certain things, as I got over certain things, I was able to do other things that I didn't feel comfortable doing before. And,
Sure.
you know, and part of the thing that was so hard for me was taking baby steps. It's like, I should be able to take big steps, right? I've been doing this a long time and, you know, and all this kind of stuff and all that. And so then it was like, I finally had to get up through my thick skull that if I needed baby steps, then that's what I needed. And one of the things that Eric Lofholm always says is small wins create confidence. And I remember at some point saying to him, I'm sick of small wins. I want a big win.
Yeah.
I think
Can I get you to go back to the baby steps involved in the free plus shipping?
What?
How you actually, I mean, you have your book,
Yeah.
you're wanting to somehow have it out there so that people can get copies of it and all they pay for is that. You're going to be paying someone to print each one of those.
Right.
How do you organize that?
Well, that's the next thing that I want to teach is the free plus shipping.
Right.
So that's down the road this year. Hopefully.
Right.
That's on the docket.
Right.
Yeah.
But those are the things that you have to organize. You have to have your book.
Right.
You have to get it into someone who.
Well, I do suggest people make it a bestseller. Excuse me, a bestseller first.
Right.
Because there's just a lot of, first of all, it's like you'll get more people, it gives you more credibility because now it's a #1 bestseller, hopefully. And then, and that gives you more confidence and it gives you a wider reach. But anyway,
but then,
yeah.
But you can't have that on your front page, then when you're launching it.
No, it wouldn't be on your front page when you're launching. It's after the launch. Anyway, right. So yeah, we have to get off in a few minutes, like 6:28. We're at 6:25. Whoa. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the process that I would use for most of my authors because most of the authors don't have a big enough platform, don't have a big enough reach. And even if you do, I mean, I have a pretty good reach. I mean, my community is like 30,000 people and even that's not enough. So, you know, I always kind of chuckle inside when people say to me, well, I could do this. I have like 1,000 people, you know, and I'm like, no, that's not enough people. You know, when you understand how the numbers work, you know, of 1,000 people, how many people are even going to open your emails or see your offer?
Right.
You know, maybe if you're lucky, 100. And then of those, how many are going to take action? Maybe, you know, of those 10. And then how many actually buy? Well, if on the numbers, 10% would be one sale. So, you know, so you got to get in front of a lot of people. That's the thing. That's the whole thing. And so whether it's JV partners, whether it's, you know, growing a group really big, whether it's getting on podcasts, I mean, that's why it's like the more you do, the bigger the launch. And then as you keep going, if you start getting people, if and when you start getting people who love what you do, and then they buy, you know, over and over as you have more things, and each time you grow it so you get more people. So, and that's how eventually, you know, people are able to have these huge launches. They didn't do it overnight, you know. They, like they said, I don't know if you guys remember, but when John Reese did the first $1 million launch, and everybody was like, oh, you know, he made $1 million in 24 hours. Well, he'd been working on that for like 4 years before that one, before that one day, you know.
Right.
So any last things before we go? We can talk more about free plus shipping next week if you want to. Or if you have other questions about marketing, just make a list.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I just put in the group, I just put passwords on all the trainings because if you don't do that, then anybody can really get in there. I should have done it right in the beginning, but I didn't.
Right.
So anyway, so I put those on. So when you want to get back in, you'll have to use the passwords to get in.
No, that's good.
Okay.
And how long are the trainings available for?
Right now they're available
indefinitely
until they're not available. Yeah. And they're in YouTube as well. So I mean, if something were to ever happen, I'm trying to figure out a backup plan because they all are there. I mean, forever they're on YouTube. They're unlisted right now. So,
right.
Yeah. I mean, if for some, like, and I haven't decided yet what we're going to do as far as, okay, we're going to do the workshop again. So then how are we going to get the new people? And is it going to be a different set of pages, or am I just going to change the password? I haven't figured out all the details yet. So once I have more details, I'll let you know kind of what the deal is. Okay.
Right. Mm.
Okay, guys,
Thank
that's
you.
it for
Okay.
now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
See
you.
you next week.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.
See you next week.